Welcome back to another edition of Liberty Coin Services, Things You Need to Know. I'm your host, Patrick A. Heller, Owner Emeritus and Communications Officer at LibertyCoinService.com. We're recording here at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, and you can hear the noise in the background here. I'm pleased to have with me now, as a guest, Elizabeth Ames, who maybe has the most notoriety as being a co-author with Steve Forbes of 3 books in the last several years. And I'll have her tell you about each of the books a little bit, but she's actually done a lot more than that, so that's what we'll talk about later.
Hi, Pat. It's good to be here. And I actually have, as you were saying, I am the co-author of 3 books with Steve Forbes, and the first one is How Capitalism Will Save Us, Why Free People and Free Markets Are the Best Answer in Today's Economy. And that's a great book for people who have hot, questions that are, pressing questions that they want to ask about free markets. Why are free markets better for healthcare, or is capitalism moral, or any number of questions. What's the best way to, what's the best tax system that we should be thinking about right now? What's the best tax reform? And this book covers everything. And what's great about it. It's in a Q&A format. You don't have to read the whole thing in one sitting. You can just read pieces of it, the questions that interest you, and it really was a terrific book, and I totally recommend it. We did it in 2009 and updated it as a paperback, and it's also available on Kindle, but the paperback's more updated in the last couple of years. The second book that we did is called Freedom Manifesto, Why Free Markets Are Moral and Big Government Isn't. And basically that sort of juxtaposes, big government versus free markets. What the statist thinking. What's, basically big government is sort of is pessimistic. Free markets are based on optimism. Food stamps, or basically. I'm actually blanking on my own book, but basically, Newt Gingrich had a comparison, jobs or food stamps. Basically, and we do a lot of different comparisons within the book that shows the positive growth creation of capitalism, and that it makes life better. That capitalism means people. Really upward mobility, opportunity, job creation, makes life better for everybody. It's improved life for hundreds of millions of people. And statism it means rationing. It means bringing politics to decisions about how to allot resources, and it's really looks at people in a very negative way. So that's the second book. The third book is Money. Basically, how the destruction of the dollar threatens the global economy and what we can do about it. Talking about that, and basically the fallacies of, in 1971, Richard Nixon severed the gold standard, took us off the gold standard, and that's totally been the source of the many more systemic crisis in the economy. There have been studies that have shown that since we ended the gold standard, there have been many more major systemic crises in the economy than before. And we talk about that and a number of other things, like the fallacy of, that you need to adjust, currency values to achieve a trade balance. The fallacy of the trade balance, one of the subjects we talk about. So there are 3 books that I think if you read them, it's a great way to get the basics. They're written for a popular audience, and hope that you'll check them out online.
Some things that you probably don't know is that when Nixon closed the gold exchange window in August 1971, he termed it temporary. Most temporary government programs are not temporary, and that's so far, 44 years later, that's still temporary. The other is that one event spurred the founder of Liberty Coin Service to open a store as opposed to just set up at coin shows.
Why is that?
He figured there'd be a lot more people that wanted to own gold and silver because the value of the U.S. dollar was not going to stay healthy, and that he needed more space and time to be able to serve those customers. Now, those books have been a financial success. But you do a lot more than that, and you have some current projects where you're developing some websites. You told me about them last night. I did a little bit of research, and I was impressed with the amount of information you have there. I'll let you describe them, and then I'll tell you one thing I was especially impressed with.
Okay, thank you. It's one big website which contains a second website within it. The website's called freemarketcentral.com, and basically it's the online hub. It's a new online hub for the free market movement. It basically collects stories from across the web, from I guess you might say free market centered publications, but from the large and small. And what we do that others don't is that we basically get the depth. We aggregate in depth the full range of these publications that are out there today that have influenced the discourse. Anything from, we will feature what's on the editorial page of the Wall Street Journal, but we'll also feature things like, the Washington Free Beacon or the Washington Examiner or the Daily Caller or Breitbart or even Weasel Zippers, which is something that some people like to post, the things that your friends will post online. We'll try to collect the entire, what I call the conservative libertarian conversation, or the conservatarian conversation online. We try to bring that to you in addition to showing what else is going on in this community. It's about community. We have first-person essays that we have also curated. Why I came to this way of thinking. It's one of my favorite parts of this. Of the site. Also wisdom, quotes from people like Milton Friedman or Hayek, or quotes, and also snippets from history, things you didn't know, that free markets, how free markets have worked in history. We have a number of other things, an events calendar, book lists. It's everything you want to need to know. There's videos, podcasts. We also have another part of the website is called thinktankcentral.com. And again, it's a similar thing, but it basically focuses on the world of free market think tanks, which have played a very, very crucial role in the free market movement. We aggregate white papers and analysis and research. You can also find the latest expert testimony in Congress, rankings and calculators. If you're a policy wonk and if you like statistics, they're all there. And so again, it's a similar kind of a site. It's just about it focuses on the think tank world.
Now, the thing that took me by surprise to see there is you have a link to John Williams' shadowstats.com. John Williams takes the current government statistical reports and refigures them using the previous methodology that the government has used in past years. For instance, I believe on employment, he's using the 1992 or 1993 methodology that the Bureau of Labor Statistics use, and he comes out with a lot different result that doesn't look quite so good. I have, to my readers and listeners, several times over the years, recommended that they go to his website to check it. This just gives you a little snippet of information on your website, but that inspired me that I want to be able to post that on the LibertyCoinService.com website. So I was impressed by the amount of information I have, and as I understand, you're still building it.
Yes, I think it is a work. Both sites are works in progress, and eventually we would like to have some original content that I hope to provide. But right now, what we want to do, the mission is to bring the conservative libertarian, the free market conversation to people. One thing about shadow stats, what I found fascinating is that it basically says we have more inflation than people think, which I personally think is true in my observations personally. And that's one thing that I cannot believe that we don't discuss more. There is, inflation in certain sectors of the economy, like food, for example, and even clothing. And it really is very little discussion of that for obvious reasons. The press doesn't want to get into that because they're on the side of the people who are running things right now. But I do think that that's something that unfortunately that we really should be talking more about is inflation and what that does. And anyway, hopefully it will not get worse, but we're all a little bit afraid that it will. So, yeah.
You've also done some work helping the Students for Liberty get some of their projects off the ground.
Actually, they're actually helping us. They're doing some work for me, and they are. I'm actually a big supporter in terms of moral support, and I think some of their people we're talking to them. They're going to be helping us with the sites. So that's another great thing that I'm very excited about.
Could you share with our readers again the name of those two websites?
Okay, the websites are at freemarketcentral.com. And the other one is thinktankcentral.com, and I really hope you'd please visit them and check them out.
You've been listening to our guest, Elizabeth Ames, here on Liberty Coin Services' Things You Need to Know series. I'm your host, Patrick A. Heller, the owner emeritus and communications officer of LibertyCoinService.com. Please check us out on some of our other interviews. Thank you. Goodbye.